From his hospital bed, Dave Aranda told the Baylor Bears, one day when the breaks are really beating the boys, tell them to go out there with all they've got and win just one for the Gipper.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Here we go. Baylor football postgame here on Locked On Baylor. I'm your host, Kim Stewart of the Rogue Media Network with the Bears. Stunning win in a lot of ways. 30-3 over UCF. Homecoming victory. Dave Aranda, your job is saved for now. I'm going to put my hand up. This is the most wrong I've been about a Baylor game this year. And I know a lot of you will go back and get some of the takes before the Auburn game, but this is the most wrong I have been about a Baylor game. I did not think they were going to win. I did not think they were going to win today. I certainly didn't think they would win by 27 points, and I certainly didn't think this defense was capable of what they did today. That's what we're going to talk about. That is the main part of this story. That for the first time since 2006, 20 seasons, Baylor held a conference opponent to 3 points. This defense, this is the one that did it. That's like one of those crazy records that you get in like a total throwaway year. Like you have this one, you know, the least amount of points they've given up in a conference game in 20 years. You had the last time they faced UCF, biggest comeback in Baylor history, comes in a 3-9 season. Like this is just a classic example of that. So I'm not going to lie, guys. I did not see this coming whatsoever. This is the most surprising Baylor football game to me in probably 2 years. Maybe Tech last year was pretty surprising that they came out and played the way they did. And honestly, it could have been a shutout. The only field goal for UCF comes off back-to-back turnovers, basically from Baylor, right? Sawyer had the fumble where he was actually down. They reversed the call, and then he throws that weird pick on the next play, or I guess it was a fumble on the next play, and it sets UCF for a field goal right before half, makes it 20-3, and it's still, they didn't get any closer than that. This was an unreal performance from the Baylor defense. And I will say overall, defense, offense, special teams, it's a team that looks like they were playing for their coach today. Certainly did. Whether that saves his job or not, I mean, let's put it into perspective what these last 5 years have been like. But today, they played for their coach. It certainly seemed like that. They came out with their hair on fire for the first time in, finish the sentence, 14-0 in basically the first two of the first three drives of the game. Then the game's out of reach. We don't really realize it at that point, but the game is out of reach at that point. Sawyer Robertson, big time bounce back. That's the Sawyer we know. 29-40 for 267, 3 touchdowns, no picks, 73% completion percentage. Bang. Easy as you like. You know, Michael Trigg, big time performance, 5 catches for 82 and a touchdown, a nice touchdown. Cole Wilson gets back on the board for the first time in a while. Josh Cameron in the end zone. Not a hugely productive day for him, 3 catches for 5 yards, but gets in the end zone. Caden Knighton is the offensive story for this team. And I could sit here and say like, oh man, this is what you're hoping from Caden Knighton all year. But we got to remember, after Bryson Washington, it's a bunch of true freshmen. And Caden Knighton is in that group. I guess Joseph Dodd's a redshirt freshman. Caden Knighton is in that group. True freshman. Wasn't expecting to play this much early in his college career. So it's not crazy that in week 9, he has a breakout performance. 5 yards a carry, not much more you can ask for. 21 for 104, obviously his first 100-yard game as a college football player. And that's where Baylor was really cooking. They could run the ball in this game. That's why they averaged more than 5 yards per play, because they could run the ball. Something special. You know, they ran for 150 yards, but that's what we haven't seen from this team. And that's something that we haven't seen in terms of this offense clicking when you establish the run the way they did today, basically without Bryson Washington. It looks like he got shaken up again in this game. I mean, an absolute battler. And there's so many on this team. There are so many guys who are battling through injuries right now that are still putting they're all out there. Bryson Washington certainly one, Michael Trigg another. And I mean, most guys are banged up at this point in the season, right? But you wouldn't know it because they're out there every week for this Baylor team. But if we're talking about the run game, I got to look at the other side. This was a UCF team that was the best rush offense in the conference coming into this game, top 20 in America. Like, this was the most lopsided matchup you could have possibly thought of in the run game. Best running team in the Big 12 against the worst running defense in the Big 12. Against one of the worst running defenses, one of the worst overall defenses in college football, and they hold them to 74 yards rushing. Their leading rusher for UCF, 50 yards. Someone was doing something right in the defensive meeting rooms this week. I don't know where it was the rest of the season, but Dave Aranda, Matt Powledge, who've had tough years, they get a tip of the cap for this one. This was not the game I expected to see this thing turn around that dramatically. Is UCF the best team on Baylor's schedule? Far from it. No. But again, with what they do well, it looked like that was setting up for disaster for Baylor. And I thought that Baylor had a chance to win for sure. But in this fashion, to win by 4 scores, I did not expect that. I did not expect a Gettysburg Address kind of game and winning by 4 scores. I did not see that. Did not have that on my bingo card, as your friends on Facebook would say. But for me, Caden Knighton, big standout performance. Obviously, the entire defense, the entire run defense, man. I don't know. And they got a couple of picks too. They won the turnover battle because of it, right? So, and they got a touchdown off a turnover as well. So those are all huge positives that we haven't seen from Baylor all season long. I don't care who the opponent is. I don't care what's left in this season. That was a very positive result today, to hold a UCF team under 230 yards and then to go for 417 against this UCF defense, which is a top 40 defense in college football, which, you know, take that for what it's worth. But Baylor's only played one of those this year. Auburn's the only one that they've played this year. And UCF might be out of the top 40 now. Houston might be out of the top 40 by the time we see them after that performance today. But to go for over 400 yards against them, to have Sawyer Robertson have a vintage Sawyer Robertson game and have your best running attack probably of the year, that's a huge deal. And I got to say, like, going back to this team playing for their coach, it's such a weird, kind of interesting situation. I think all these players love Dave Aranda. I think they do. And we hear it from recruits all the time. They love Dave and they love the coaching staff there. And it's not that they're not trying ever. But this week it probably just all crescendoed in that, you know, all of us, not just me, all of us around Baylor media, we're talking about Dave Aranda needing to be fired and how far this program has fallen, back-to-back losses. And to top it all off, you have a Friday night homecoming bonfire where they bring the coach out and he's booed by his own fans on homecoming. Like, that's eye-opening for these players. That's really eye-opening. And still in this game, you know, I'm watching it on ESPN and they've got the camera on the bridge going out back towards campus at halftime, and it's just a steady stream of people leaving. And I think this team was like, you know what? Enough. We can't put this talk completely to bed, but we're going to put it to bed for a day. And in terms of what it means for Dave Aranda's job, like, obviously this doesn't, not a single win make or break a man's career. Right. Not in this instance. A regular season win over UCF does not maketh Dave Aranda's tenure here at Baylor. Right. There's so many other things you can point to. And I'm sure most of you thought he should have already been fired. That certainly does not get him off the hook for the rest of the year. Baylor still got some tough games coming up after the bye. They got Utah. They'll still have Houston there. This would have made the most sense if they had lost because, A, it would have been an embarrassing loss. It would have put you under 500, and it was right before the bye week. But this was a team that felt like they were playing for their coach. The offensive execution wasn't perfect. It was definitely good enough, obviously, but 14 of your 30 points came in the first quarter. And I know I can see it popping off in the comment section. I know there were a lot of Baylor fans who wanted them to lose today, just because they thought it would expedite the process of of firing Dave Aranda. Like, I understand that, but I'm not rooting against Baylor ever. Maybe in hindsight you say that, but I'm never rooting against Baylor. And it's the same reason why I'm probably not booing Dave Aranda yesterday if I was at the bonfire. Like, I get it. Like, I totally understand, and fans are fed up. It's just not probably something that I would do because I just read the room a little bit is what I would do. I'm never rooting for Baylor to lose. But I understand that thought process. It's just not for me. I get it because I also want to change at the head ball coach here, and I'm already looking at guys. So I do understand, and I'm hearing the crowd was pretty good for the first half before I thought a lot of people started leaving. And yes, I understand that Dave Aranda that UCF is bad. Sorry, I'm trying to read all these comments here. Complimentary football for the first time this year. S. Austin speaks. I'm giving a lot of compliments on it, but in terms of complimentary football, you definitely saw that. And probably, for the first time this year, because the only time that Baylor's defense played this well, they didn't play this well, but near this well this season was Arizona State. And your offense absolutely did not pick up the slack. There. So yes, this was absolutely the best 60-minute performance they've put in all year. And that includes Samford, by the way. That includes Samford. So this was it. This was what a good team looks like in November in a conference game against an inferior team. It's not always 52-10. 30-3 does the job just fine. Billy Love asked this question that I did get the question on Twitter, and I had actually read it wrong, but my answer is still kind of the same. So do we think Bryson comes back next year because he's been injured most of the season? I thought, so when I saw this on Twitter, I thought it was about my Michael Trigg tweet asking if he would come back. And so I said, no, I doubt it. And then realized it was about Bryson Washington. But I do think that is an interesting one to watch. I think the guy loves Baylor, and obviously he's put it all out on the line this year, but he's had some injuries. I don't think that's the reason. I think he got a lot of interest last year. He got a lot of interest in the spring. A lot of what some would see as bigger programs than Baylor were giving him some real interest. There was some SEC interest there from what I have heard from people close to the situation. So if they were to go in a different direction and get a new head coach, then that's a very easy way for a lot of players to say, okay, well, now I'm really going to listen to that interest this year. And so that's kind of what I was thinking of. Like, I'd put it at like a 50-50 of just like my opinion. Again, knowing a little bit about the situation of what the interest was for him last year, maybe not even necessarily his interest for a guy whom is probably ready to be in his draft year next year, right? Is like playing for the NFL draft next year. A new coach coming in might not be the best thing for him. And you see that all over college football at this point. Seeing a lot of fans who were saying they were conflicted about Baylor winning this game. UCF awful. That's from Cynical Bear. I won't say what he said about Dave's defense, but it wasn't nice. UCF's not great. That actually says UFC. I'm not a big UFC fan either. More of a team sports guy. But I think you're going for UCF. I don't think they're terrible. I don't think they're awful. But they're certainly not the best team on Baylor's schedule. Like, they're not a great team for sure. The Gottlieb guy, man, just that big a fan of Doug Gottlieb, lost it today. He's pissed that they won. Not because he's not a Baylor fan, because I'm looking long term. And I get that. I do. But like, if that's what you believe, right? And you believe that this Baylor team stinks because Dave Aranda is their coach and that he's bringing them down, which I've basically said before, right? I'm not disagreeing with you necessarily, but if that's what we believe, then they're probably going to lose to Utah. And they're probably going to lose to Houston, who took one today. Like, so there was a very, very, very small chance that Dave Aranda was going to be fired during the season. And yes, this would have been the chance, right? If you lose on homecoming to UCF right before the bye week, that would have been it. But if you're so sold on like Dave Aranda needs to get fired because this team is underwhelming and they stink, then they'll probably lose again. I'm seeing a lot of, not just the Gottlieb guy, I'm seeing a lot of people like up in arms of like, damn, I'm pissed they won today. Like if that's the thought process, then they are probably going to lose at some point. Like they're not a better team than Utah. And I don't think they're a better team than Houston right now. So that's kind of what I have to say about that, which I don't know. I don't want to be talking bad about this team after a nice win. But Chino asked a big question. Where did this defense come from? I wish I knew. I wish I knew, man. I didn't even expect, like, okay, this is where I'm like trying not to overrate UCF here, but I didn't expect a defensive performance from Baylor like this at any point this year, except against maybe Samford. Even when I thought their defense was going to be okay, passable, I did not think they'd have a performance where they held a conference opponent to 3 points. Yeah, that is wild. That is wild. But it does put Dave 2 games over 500 now. Just saying. Jack Trice apparently emptier than McLean today. I have not caught that game, just a bit of the score. That would be nice. People are looking for some bear coats on Amazon. I mean, if they're going to force a couple turnovers like that, for sure. And Billy Love does ask, he asked about Bryson earlier. Bryson, Dawson, Caden Knighton, 3-headed monster going into next year. If Bryson stays, absolutely, that's it. And if he doesn't, Dawson Pendergrass, Caden Knighton, Mike Turner, that's a good stable of horses right there in your backfield. Like that's a good stable here. Cynical bear. Watch the language, man. Come on. It's a family-friendly program. But yeah, I was really impressed with the push they got up front today, with how the defense played. You know, as much as I want to highlight some of the offensive guys like Knighton, like Sawyer bouncing back, like Michael Trigg bouncing back, today was about the defense. He gave up 3 points, and that is incredible. That is incredible. That said, like, you're still on borrowed time, man. You're still on borrowed time. You know, anything that's underwhelming or disappointing or downright embarrassing after this is still on Dave Aranda's resume. You know, it's like the opposite of your GPA. GPA is so easy to bring down. It's way tougher to bring up. It's easy to have your reputation go down the way it has for Dave Aranda this season if it wasn't already down. It's going to be a lot tougher at this point to get it back up. But today is for today. The post-game show is for today, all right? And Baylor played really well today. And I wish they weren't 5-4. I wish they were, 7-2, so that I could say, wow, this is the kind of performance that could get you to Arlington and could play for the Big 12 championship and all that. But it's not. It's not that. But it's a nice win. It's a nice win. Gottlieb guy is really getting, I'm not trying to say you're not a fan, Gottlieb guy. I'm not. It's just not what I would have done. That's all. And I understand wanting a new coach. I want a new coach too, man. I want a new coach too. I'm just saying that, like, if that's what we think this is, if we think it's time for a change and it's because of what we've seen so far, then it'll probably happen again. They'll probably lose again. And there's not a great chance that they end the season 8-4. You know what I mean? So that's all I'm saying about that. Good question that I want to end on here. From Big Bear 92. What do you think the deal is with Walker White and Nate Bennett? I hate that Dave said in the Samford game that he only played Bennett because of the tenure. Is he better, or is this a clear-cut bad coaching move? This is very interesting to me because this is multi-layered. In fact, I probably should do a segment on it this week, which will probably be a lot of the same things I'm about to say now. I also was upset after the Samford game that was the reasoning. It's not the end of the world. It was the 3rd game of the season, and I like Nate Bennett. But they were saying, like, oh, well, Nate Bennett's been in the program longer, and he really hadn't. It had been for a couple of months. Walker White came in January. So it seemed pretty clear cut that Walker was going to be your backup quarterback, because of, both these guys judging them off of what they did in high school as recruits. Walker White was a much, much higher rated recruit than Nate Bennett was. And so that seemed like the future of your position. And now this is twice that they've gone to Nate Bennett before they've gone to Walker White. I don't know if they've gone to Walker. I think did Walker get a couple of snaps in that Stanford game? I don't know if he's gotten any snaps this year. It's weird. And so I don't like that answer either. But looking at this as a clear-cut bad coaching move, here's where it gets interesting. Because most of the time, I'm thinking, okay, Zach Miller just said 0 snaps. Thank you, Zach. 0 snaps for Walker White this year. That's wild. And Chuck's thinking he's going to hit the portal, which is, I mean, that's a reasonable expectation, I guess. Reasonable prediction because he did it last year. But looking at the second part of this question, bad coaching move or not, most of the time I'm saying not a bad coaching move, because when it comes to like the hierarchy of your quarterbacks, that's something that's won and lost in practice every day. And we don't see practice every day. We don't. And so 99% of the time I'm saying, no, that's on the quarterback who's not performing, not the coach who's making that decision. The 1%, though, comes from the fact that last year, the starting quarterback day one was DeQuan Finn for this same coaching staff. And it should have been Sawyer Robertson, as we saw later on. So it's an interesting one to try and answer. I'm going to lean towards it's not bad coaching. I think it's probably Walker taking a little bit longer to get adjusted to this playbook and how this team is trying to play than I think they initially thought, or we initially thought. And that's why you're seeing Nate Bennett playing before Walker White. But overall, very positive day for Baylor. It obviously does not save Dave Aranda's job. He is still very much on borrowed time, but it's been 19 years since you held a conference opponent to 3 points or less, and you just did that today. How about SMU? Another win of yours just got better. SMU beating Miami. Man, they pulled out all the magic. They pulled out all the stops. Eric Dickerson and Craig James were there today. But big win for Baylor for vibes, because I don't know about these next couple of games. They're going to be very tricky. Even Arizona, pretty tricky. But a good win for the Bears. I don't care that UCF is not as good. Okay. They're not Oklahoma State. All right. They're not Purdue. And when you are 4-4 going into this game, you can't just say, oh, well, that team's not good. You're 4-4. Like, beggars cannot be choosers here, and you got to win. Let me know what you thought about it in the comment section below. Be sure to like the video. Subscribe to the channel. That helps me out a lot. We keep hitting milestones for this channel. We're trying to get it to 5,000. It's already the #1 Baylor football show on YouTube, and that is because of you guys. Thank you so much for making it your first listen today and every day. We'll have even more of a breakdown on Monday's edition of your favorite show, which is, of course, Locked On Baylor.